Good evening, good night, good day to you, and that's depending where you are in the world. It is Sabbath. Sabbath begins sunset Friday, so Sabbath blessings one and all, and Sabbath runs until sunset on Saturday. That's a full 24 hours, so Sabbath blessings. Doing our nighttime devotion, the devotional is called Conflict and Courage. The title today, A King Rebuked. 2 Samuel 12 verse 7. And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. As time passed on, David's sin toward Bathsheba became known, and suspicion was excited that he had planned the death of Uriah. The Lord was dishonored. He had favored and exalted David, and David's sin misrepresented the character of God and cast reproach upon his name. It intended to lower the standard of godliness in Israel, to lessen in many minds the abhorrence of sin, while those who did not love and fear God were by it emboldened in transgression. Nathan, the prophet, was bidden to bear a message of reproof to David. It was a message terrible in its severity. To few sovereigns could such a reproof be given, but at the price of certain death to the reprover. Nathan delivered the divine sentence unflinchingly, yet with such heaven-born wisdom as to engage the sympathies of the king, to arouse his conscience, and to call from his lips the sentence of death upon himself. The guilty may attempt, as David had done, to conceal their crime from men. They may seek to bury the evil deed forever from human sight or knowledge. But all things are naked and opened unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. Hebrews 4:11. The prophet Nathan's parable of the ewe lamb given to the King David may be studied by all. While he was following his course of self-indulgence and commandment breaking, the parable of a rich man who took from a poor man his one ewe lamb was presented before him. But the king was so completely wrapped in his garments of sin that he didn't see that he was the sinner. He fell into the trap and passed his sentence upon another man, as he supposed, condemning him to death. This experience was most painful to David, but it was most beneficial. But for the mirror which Nathan held up before him, in which he so clearly recognized his own likeness, he would have gone on unconvicted of his own heinous sin and would have been ruined. The conviction of his guilt was the saving of his soul. He saw himself in another light, as the Lord saw him. And as long as he lived, he repented of his sin. A king rebuked. So, as it says here, the story is King David slept with Bathsheba because he saw her one night. Bathsheba happened to be the wife of one of David's one of his best warriors, Uriah. And he slept with Bathsheba. And then it got to the stage where he wanted to cover up what he had done. And so what he did, he wanted Bathsheba basically. So he had to get Uriah out of the picture. So he wrote a message, a letter, sealed it with wax, gave it to Uriah, who had come back from the battle, gave it to Uriah to take back to, I think it's Joab, who's the chief general. So Uriah gave this letter to Joab, who was the general in the battle of the army of Israel. Now the letter said, make sure you put Uriah in the most heated part, right at the front of the battle. And make sure you dress back, so he's bound to get killed. And this happened, and Uriah did get killed. And so by this process, David was then able to then marry Bathsheba. But as it says here, although he can hide it from everyone else, he can't hide it from God. And God spoke to Nathan, who was the prophet who had taken over from Samuel. And he spoke to Nathan and said to Nathan, go and tell David what he's done. I'm aware of what he's done, and tell him to repent of his sin. So Nathan gave him a story about a lamb, and in essence, David was so engrossed in the story and about the man that took the lamb from the other man, etc. And David said, that man deserves to die. And Nathan then says to the king, you are that man. And at that point, Nathan fell apart. Not Nathan, David fell apart. And ultimately ended up repenting and becoming stronger. And that is something we all need to remember. Yes, it's good to seek forgiveness, but it's imperative we repent. And to repent means to not repeat it. Sabbath blessings, one and all. I pray you all have a very blessed Sabbath. God bless you. Have a good night's rest.